Yeah.
Jameela, are we ready to start?
Yeah.
Yeah, Goneshwari, please start recording.
Yeah. Cloud, no?
Yes.
Okay.
Veena Kohli is also here.
Started, huh?
Namaskar. I'm very happy to welcome all of you on behalf of Trivandrum main branch of AIWC and the Literary and Cultural Forum, which works under this the branch. This is the 51st session under our Literary and Cultural Forum. And it is a very happy occasion for us that we have been able to continuously do 50 episodes, and now we are entering the 51st episode, and we are planning some new series this time. And today we are starting a new series with an introductory talk by Dr. Jameela Begum. And she needs no introduction because all of you know her. She has been the heart and soul behind this LCF series of lectures. And in fact, the very idea of starting such a forum came with her first talk to us. We had a webinar on Louis Gleek, the Nobel Prize winner, and that got a very good, very phenomenal response. And everybody was saying that we would like to have more such webinars. That is when we thought of starting this literary and cultural forum. And from then, of course, there has been no looking back. We have been conducting webinars on various topics, on various themes, and it has been a very, very exciting journey so far. So now we are trying out a different path. Dr. Jameela will be explaining this in more detail, so that I leave to her. But though all of you know her, know Jameela, I would like to give a very quick introduction about Jameela. She is a very accomplished academician, was the head of the department and professor in the Department of English of Kerala University. She was instrumental in setting up a Center for Canadian Studies in Kerala University, and she was also president of the Indian Association for Canadian Studies for 2 terms. So she has sort of specialized in Canadian studies, and under our series on G20 countries, she spoke to us about Canada and the art and culture of Canada. I think nobody would forget. Those who had attended will definitely remember what a wonderful lecture that was. She has been associated with many universities, both Indian and outside, and with the UGC in different roles. She was associated with Vishwabharati Shantiniketan, then the University of Hyderabad, Central University of Kashmir, University of Kakatiya in Warangal, then universities of Pondicherry, Gandhigram, and so, you know, she has had very wide experience in the academic field, and she's a very well thought out expert on curriculum development, textbook development, and she has served in various capacities, and she continues to play that role even now. She is busy in various committees, and she is working along with them also, and along with that, she finds time to devote to literary and cultural forum. In fact, literary and cultural forum, everything is done by her. I only provide the platform and be the host at these sessions. So 100% credit goes to Dr. Jameela Begum. And I'm very happy to be welcoming her. She has been a friend and now a colleague in AIWC for several years. And many people attend our webinars mainly also not only for the resource person, who were all, of course, extremely good, but to listen to Jameela's introduction. The first introductory talk that she gives in the beginning of each webinar, people look forward to it. So she is our star attraction in these LCF webinars. So Jameela, very warm welcome to you. And we are all looking forward very eagerly to listen to you. And this is actually the third time that we are having a member of AIWC as our resource person. If you remember, we had Dr. Shobha Supekar last time. She spoke to us about Kasturba. And we had another webinar on chair yoga where Dr. Kamini was speaking to us. So this shows, the wealth of talent and expertise that we have in our branches. If we can
Jyotika was also one of the speakers.
Jyotika was there in one of our earlier series. She spoke on the Women's Reservation Bill. So that is what, we have such a wealth of talent and expertise in our branches. If we can just pool these talents together, I'm sure AIWC can go into a very glorious second century of existence. When we celebrate our centenary in a couple of years, if we can just put all these the talented people together and work out some projects and programs, it will definitely bring great glory to AIWC. I hope that we are able to do that. So once again, a very warm welcome to Dr. Jameela Begum and also to our patrons, Veena ji, and all members who have joined from different places. Special welcome to Dr. Kumi Veena, who was our resource person in one of the earlier lectures. And I'm sure she'll continue to be associated with us. And to all others who have joined, our president, Dr. Kalyani Raj, has also joined. Very warm welcome to you, Kalyani. And I would like you to say a few words before I pass on the session to Dr. Jameela Begum. Kalyani, will you please give a few remarks before we proceed?
Yeah, thank you, Usha, and thank you for arranging this. Uh, I don't know whether I can call it intellectual webinars. I think this is one of the one webinars we have, Trivandrum Cultural Series webinar. They are always very thought provoking on different topics, and a lot of takeaways also from all of the webinars which I've not been able to attend all, but whichever I have attended, there have been a lot of takeaways. And as you suggested, we have volume of talents in our branch members. So yes, we can definitely pull it for much betterment of AIWC. And Jameela ji's deliberation, Usha, you are absolutely right. We look forward to listening to Jameela ji, and I'm always admire her poise, her the way she talks so softly, and she conveys so much of message. So a whole lot of things she is able to convey in probably just a few sentences, and that's really remarkable. And I'm really looking forward, Jameela ji, to listening to you. Thank you so much.
So Jameela, over to you now.
Okay, thank you, Usha, for that very warm welcome, and Kalyanji for such a warm reception of our program, the Literary and Cultural Forum. And one of the things that Usha and I have been debating for some time was, how do we start a new series? How can we make it different from the ones that we have done before? And regular viewers on this platform know that we have touched almost all topics under the earth, one should say, from dance to painting, from films to the Silent Valley, from the tribals in India to the natives in other countries, and then we went to the G20 countries. So I must say that's the YouTube recording that we have of our 50 sessions is a wealth of information, and something I think we can be justly proud of, Usha. And Usha, I must say, is a taskmaster. She keeps pushing me to do something or other. And that is how, after a lot of thought about what to do next, I decided that the art of telling stories, who tells stories, who hears stories. Tellers always need hearers also for their stories. So we thought there's so much of stories all around us. Our own stories, the stories of our neighbors, the stories of what has happened in Kashmir now. They are also stories, they are live stories that kindle our, not just our imagination, they kindle ourselves to really address various issues that are going around us. So telling stories is not just about imagination or fantasy. It is very realistic. It is very down to earth. And that is what prompted us to start this series, The Art of Telling Stories. Some of those who have joined on this platform express their view that is it going to be very abstract about the art and craft of writing. I said not at all. Stories are something that come from within us. Stories are something that we like to hear. And what we hear, in fact, changes our perception of the world. I must say, Kurjatji, your talk yesterday was so full of, so emotionally packed, though I couldn't listen to the entire thing of it. But that was a story. That was a story that touches us in our hearts, in our heartstrings, and our emotions are awakened. And we become a new person after listening to a story. And that is the stories that we have around us. So in this section, I would like to talk to you generally about the art of storytelling. I have a few slides, so I'm going to the slides now. Is that okay, Usha?
Yes,
You can see it.
yes, we can see.
So what is storytelling and the series that we are going to have now? Maybe we'll have another 50 that will make us 100 old with our cultural and literary forum in the next 4 years. Let's hope that all of you are with us in this storytelling of what we are and what we become as we listen to stories. So it's not moving.
No, it may take a little time, but I think the network is slow. That is why. You can continue speaking while the slide changes.
Yeah, I would just. Your screen, it says you're sharing screen, but nothing is coming on the screen.
No, it has come on the screen. The first slide is getting displayed.
Okay.
So you can now go to the next slide.
Yeah, I'm talking about my first slide. I have an alternative here, so I will talk to you about that. When we think of stories, each one of us has a unique story of tears, of laughter, of pain and healing, of challenges, victories. We hear, we read, we see, and interpret others' lives also. And that is what completes the book of our lives. I think it's a very telling quote that our stories merge with other stories, and we read and we hear and see and interpret other lives. I have next.
The slide has not changed, Jameela.
Yeah, I know.
You stop sharing and start again. Maybe that will help.
That's good.
Are you trying again?
Yes.
Now we can see it, Jameela.
Yeah, you can see it.
Yeah, but yeah,
Yes,
just try.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
perfect.
it has come.
Perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's come.
So that's what I've been talking about, the unique story that each one of us has. And I would say, take a minute to think about your own story. Isn't it full of tears, full of laughter? Is it not one in which we have felt pain? We have also healed the challenges and the victories. And think of all the stories we have heard from people around us who tell us about their lives. We have read about so many lives, and we have seen also so many lives, say in pictures, in tapestries. We have seen life in films, in songs. And then what we do is we interpret other lives. That is what completes the book of our lives. So it's a very telling kind of quote, which makes each one of us think about what life is. This is a tapestry from Rajasthan. If you look very closely at this tapestry, you will find that there are people there, there are animals there, there are men there, there are women there, there are little children, some of them dancing. I don't know how clear it is for you, but here is a tapestry of life as we know it. We do not live in a vacuum. We live where other people are. And because there are other people, we interact with them and we interpret them. We understand them, or we try to understand them. Look at this story. I'm sure is something that everyone is familiar with, the fox and the sour grapes. I think we all studied this in our younger days when we talked about stories animal stories that fascinated us. If you look at this picture, each one of us perhaps had an image of the fox and the grapes. And here is an artist trying to tell us how he sees this story. So our perception is very different from others' perceptions. And that is why here the fox, perhaps for most of us, perhaps doesn't look like a fox, or the tree doesn't really look like a tree which has grapes on it. It's like a frozen picture for us. And it is this freezing of pictures in our minds that gives us a tapestry of running images in our mind. If you look at a story, that is what really happens. This doesn't really tell us anything other than that it makes us look at it closely and we try to think what the story is. And of course, all of you are familiar with this story. The fox who was going and found a tree full of grapes. He wanted the grapes, he jumped, did not get the grapes. And because he did not get the grapes, he said, oh, they are after all sour grapes. I don't want them. I don't need them. But it teaches us also a lesson to strive. And if you strive and you don't get it, well, nevertheless, there is something else somewhere else. And that is what makes the fox go. And that is also from where we get that word sour. Sour was not in the vocabulary until the fox and Aesop's fables gave us the word sour. So if stories are a part of our lives, how did stories begin? Orality or telling of stories is the passing down of stories by word of mouth. There was no writing at one point of time. And because there was no writing, they either used the totem poles or sometimes they used the caves to draw pictures and lines in order to convey meaning, to communicate with others. So orality became a way of communicating what is seen and heard, what is believed and practiced, and this was handed down from generation to generation. And what is interesting here is that when stories got handed down from generation to generation, stories also changed depending on who was telling the story and the occasion in which the story was being told. One such example is the Sita stories. We have a collection that has come out, which is called Sita Stories. We all know only perhaps about one story, the Ramayana story. But there are many, many stories that belonged to tribes which talk about Sita. And Canadian writer even wrote about how Sita left the gardens here and went to the gardens in Canada and played around with the butterflies and the tribals there, the way in which he fused with nature. So every rendering or retelling of a story becomes very significant because we are in fact adding more imagination to it. We are adding our own interpretation into it. Now, there are stories which tell that Sita was innocent, and that is why Sita, when she got back, got sucked into the earth, her mother. There are other stories that say that Sita was consumed in the flowers and never returned to the earth. So there are many stories as to the ending, how we change the ending. one very popular story that is now told to management students is this, about the tortoise and the hare. We know that stories about the hare and the tortoise, how they ran a race, and the first time, and when they ran the race, because the hare slept on the way, the tortoise reached the destination and won the race. There is another retelling which says that the hare did not sleep, and therefore the hare won the race. But there is still another story which says that on the path along which they had to run, there was a river, and which the tortoise had chosen this time the path to run. The hare could not cross the river, and so the tortoise told the hare, "Come sit on my back and I will take you to the other end." And so both of them won the race. So here is teaching teamwork. And this is a story that got changed, or I would say got reformulated in order to meet a certain particular end. Now, why do oral traditions become important for us? They are because they connect the past, present, and the future. And it also tightens tribal and familial bonds because they sit together, perhaps around a fire, they tell their stories, they communicate creation stories, they have cultural beliefs, personal family history gets communicated. And all these stories, in one way or other, were found to be very fascinating for the group of people who heard the story. The story may not have been very important or very significant for another group who did not know this group. So initially, stories were only for a group that came close together. They had a common bonding. And that is why when they talked about creation stories, each tribe had a creation story. And each tribe tried to think about how this world came into being and how people came to live here. This is a very interesting myth which the Quada tribes had. The Quada tribes were a tribe in the very North American regions, and this is the story which is very fascinating. This is how the story goes. You know, everything had to begin, and this is how it was. The Kiowas came one by one into the world through a hollow log. There were many more than now, but not all of them got out. There was a woman whose body was swollen up with child, and she got stuck in the log. After that, no one could get through. And that is why the Kiowas are a small tribe in number. They looked around, saw the world. It made them glad to see so many things, and they called themselves Quada, which means coming out of a log. So this was creation, out of a log. So there are very, for us sometimes we may think it's a funny story. How could creation be like this? But a group of people believed that, and it is this belief that sustains a story. We have many stories that have survived. It did not die with the tribe or the group. Mainly stories that stories like the one that I just narrated, they are called the creation myths. How creation came into this world, how the sun, the moon, the stars were created, how the land and the forests came into being. There are many, many stories of each of these. And in many of these stories, animals form an integral part, like the Aesop's fables. And these animals have human-like qualities, and they teach valuable lessons to the new generation of children. And so the elders who tell the stories with a moral. And that is how we talk about when we are teaching our children, we say, this is the moral of the story. But not many in the new generation listen to that. So that's another thing. The moral of a story was important for the elders, and this is how they communicated good qualities in their children. There were also what is called the trickster figures, who were a source of entertainment and a tool for moral instruction. And there are many tricksters like Coyote in Native American narratives. There is also a number of stories about migration. because most of these people did not have fixed dwellings, and they moved from one place to another depending on the congenial situation that they could find away from a place. So stories about the journey of a group of people, and it also involved challenges and conflicts, and it reflects the history and values of a particular tribe. When you talk about these migration legends, one sad thing that comes to mind is when the elders move from one place to another, they need help. And sometimes they are not able to make the journey to the end, so they are left behind. So there are also sad stories of what happens to man when he gets old and when the youngsters cannot take them along with them on the journey. So these are stories which touch us even today. Apart from the tribal stories, we have all heard about the Greek myths and the Greek gods and goddesses. And they explain natural phenomena. They also have moral lessons. They also have talk about experiences. Of course, most of us are familiar, literature students are familiar with the gods and goddesses of Greek mythology. Zeus, the king of gods, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, the heroes like Hercules and Odysseus, who undertake dangerous quests and battle fearsome monsters like the Minotaur and the Medusa. And myths also explain natural phenomena like the seasons and the origin of the world. There is a myth which takes us not only to nature, but there is also myths that takes us to adventure. So here is how a hero gets born. Until now, we have been talking about collective experiences, collective groups, animal stories, but with the heroes entering the stage as Odysseus, why we find epic travels begin to be narrated. And gods like Zeus and Prometheus, and the story about the gift of fire. Prometheus brings fire to mankind, and therefore he is cursed and tried to a rock from where the ravens eat his heart, continuously eat his heart as it is reformed. So that's the kind of damnation that a god can have on a human, or a god that has transcended the heavenly world, like Prometheus. And of course, the Pandora's box, which is used as an expression where we talk about the release of evil into the world. It's a myth about curiosity. Because you're curious, you open the box, the Pandora's box, and out rushes out all the evil in this world. Hercules and all the 12 tasks that are assigned to Hercules to atone for his sins, like washing out of the stables and any number of all these tasks we find actually attributed a heroic quality to the gods and the humans like Odysseus. One of the first books that have caught the human imagination is Homer's Odyssey. And Homer's Odyssey talks about the Odysseus, who's a king of Ithaca, who wanders for 10 years. Although the action of the poem covers only the final 6 weeks, he's trying to get home after the Trojan War. He has gone to fight a war, and he's away from his family, Telemachus, his son, and his wife, Penelope. So the journey which he has to make to come back from Troy, where he goes, and come back to Ithaca is a story of adventure. So stories of adventure also fascinate us, because, and even in films, stories of adventures that we find are fascinating because they take us to a totally new world of conflicts, the surfacing of courage, the surfacing of strength. It's also trying to say that humans can survive, and if they have a willpower. And that is what happens with Odysseus, the king of Ithaca, who comes back, destroys all the suitors of Penelope, his wife, while he was away for 10 years, and reestablishes himself in the kingdom. This is like a fairy tale story where everything ends well. Whatever happens, finally, the hero will be able to solve everything and establish a balance. Now, when we think about Odysseus, some of us have studied many of these stories, but I would just make a reference to the shipwreck, the shore of Syria, the land of the Phaeacians, where he is finally lands. He tells them of their encounters with the lotus eaters who won't allow him to leave, the sorceress Circe who holds him in her grave, and the narrow escape from the Cyclops, and the ordeal navigating between Scylla and Charybdis, and the final shipwreck in which Odysseus is washed ashore on Ogygia alone. And finally, his return to Ithaca. So, lot of place names, lots of very strange imaginative beings, lots of otherworldly things now come into the narrative. If in the tribal stories and the fable stories, we had talked about smaller things of imagination, or let's say the little things of imagination, here we are seeing a whole expanse of what the world is like. And the concept of the hero is born. And he's filled with longing, temptation, good, evil, and it's an enduring classic because his story, through centuries old, are remarkably human and continue to grip our imagination, the contemporary imagination. As I was telling you earlier, whenever a story has been told and new generations are born, they try to reinterpret those stories or rewrite those stories. So what we have are retellings of those stories. Now, James Joyce in the 20th century, remember Ulysses and the Odyssey was written so many centuries back. Here is a writer who takes up this journey of Ulysses, but with a difference. He does not talk about physical journeys, he talks about mental journeys, talks about a stream of consciousness technique. Now it's here we begin to realize that stories are not always linear, beginning from one end and then going to another end to finally wind up everything. In a story like Ulysses, you find Stephen Dedalus, who is the main character in Ulysses, how he undertakes the journey in just about 12 to 16 hours, and what happens to him during that short time. So a huge novel gets written on the inner workings of the mind. Now that is where stories also begin to have a great impact on the minds of the readers. And of course, Margaret Atwood's Penelopead, which talks about Penelope, the tale as told through the eyes of Penelope, the wife of Ulysses. And of course, the film that was made later by the Coen brothers, whose film was Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, which was produced in 2000. So you're really moving from a story that was told once to stories that are retold in the present century. This is what I was saying about the psychological novel and Ulysses. The exact timing, it starts on 16 June 1904 at 8 a.m. and ends sometime after 2 a.m. the following morning. And much of it occurs in the mind of the characters. Now, when we look at Margaret Atwood's Penelopead, it is a feminist novel. It talks from another perception. It talks about how a woman who has experienced the absence of a husband for 10 long years, and how the suitors try to overcome her and establish their authority. The grief, the hardships that she endures, her willpower, courage, and the heartbreak of a life of a woman in ancient Greece All these get portrayed in a novel like The Penelope. And what I'm trying to suggest is this is the picture of the novel, and you will see that Penelope and the waters behind, suggesting the waters that Ulysses traveled, but it is more the troubled waters in the mind of Penelope, his wife. So if we have novels that get written, we also have myths that tell us about the cycle of seasons. We all talk about how we have harvest time, and then when we have the dry climate, and then nothing is there on the surface of the earth, particularly the 4 seasons in Europe, which are dry and which are cold, like the winter and the autumn season. Spring and summer are the better season when everything is green and everything is fine. There is a myth that relates to, and every time you see these 4 marked seasons, you remember Persephone and her mother Demeter. Persephone was a daughter of Demeter. Persephone was a very lovely girl, very beautiful, and she had many suitors. But Demeter was so attached to her daughter, she was not satisfied with any suitor who came. And finally, what happens is the Hades, who is the god of the underworld, who is hard, middle-aged man and living in the dark among the shadows of the dead, makes a proposal. Demeter says no, but Hades follows Persephone, and while she is picking flowers, he picks. It's like as she stooped down to pick the flower, the earth beneath her feet suddenly cleaved open, and through the gap, Hades himself came out on his chariot with black horses, grabbed the lovely maiden before she could scream for help, and descended into the underworld. And naturally, Demeter was grief-stricken. She prayed to Zeus, and finally Zeus said, all right, half the time, Demeter, your daughter Persephone will be on the earth with you, and half the time in a year, she will be the queen of the underworld. So that is how Greek mythology says the cycle of nature was born. It's not only about stories about people, but stories about nature also that we need to, that are interesting. And really, as we broaden our perspective about what this world is, so many animals around us, so many human beings, so many adventurers, so many things happening in nature. And then out of it all, Aristotle, as we know, is a great philosopher, and the Delphic oracle, which says, know yourself first. How do we know ourselves? And Aristotle says, you know yourself when you read, you can feel pity. And when you have a cathartic movement within you, let's say an epiphany of sorrow, anger, all those emotions that control us at the same time. And it is then that we begin to find a narrative that is appealing, or a story that we say that really hits us so much that we begin to know ourselves. And this is what he says in Poetics. He says there are 6 main elements. And when we talk about a narrative, we must have a plot, we must have characters in it, we must have diction, we must have spectacles, songs, and very thought-provoking ideas. And he defines plot as a series of incidents. Now, what's the difference between a plot and a theme? A plot gives us an arrangement of incidents within a story. It can be a play, it can be a film, it can be even a long-running mural painting, which tells you something in the beginning and then there is a progression. It's an arrangement of incidents, an arrangement of events, logically that is structured. As I told you earlier, there are ways of narration. You can have a linear narrative. You can also have a round narrative or cyclical narrative that has, say, flashbacks. There is a novel by Margaret Lawrence, which is called The Stone Angel. The narrator is a 90-year-old woman, and she begins to tell of her story. And therefore she goes back, flashbacks, and then somewhere in the middle of her life, another flashback comes. And then somewhere a little later on, she begins to tell us of something else. So this is the way in which it's like a jigsaw puzzle. You put these all together and only then you realize what your life is. And that is what is for each one of us, I think. So telling a story is not just something that is objective or it is outside yourself. It is something you begin to understand. And theme, as Aristotle says, there is always a theme. It could be about human kindness. It could be about courage. It could be about a world view about what constitutes the modern generation. Any of those, which is something that is different from a plot, becomes the theme of any text. Characters. When you think of characters, naturally, it is the Shakespearean characters that come to mind first. Hamlet, Othello, King Lear. Think of each of those characters that Shakespeare has created. They are characters who remain in our memory, not because they belong to that particular period of history, but there is a Hamlet in each one of us, to be or not to be, the vacillation we have every time we have to take a decision. Is that what Shakespeare is telling us? Othello, jealousy, how jealousy can drive us even to a point where you kill the most loved person in your life. King Lear, who loved all his daughters, but loved some more than others and wanted them to tell him how much they loved him. And remember, his youngest daughter tells him, I love you as much as the salt, because salt is indispensable. But King Lear thinks that is very demeaning to describe him. And therefore, he, in fact, gives everything to his two older daughters. And it is finally Cordelia who saves him. King Lear also, for senior persons like us here, is an indication that it is always good to think and to analyze before you make hasty decisions and hasty conclusions. So that's a theme that comes out of a character. When you talk about style, how does one arrange sentences? And in a prose text, it is different, but prose can also be very poetic. In a poetry text, you have rhyme and rhythm, but you can have that in prose as well. In the showing a film, you can have long shots, you can have short ones, which are prominent ones. So there are a lot of ways in which style is something that is, you say style is the writer. So what distinguishes a writer from another writer is the way in which he describes and the way in which he projects what is in his mind. This takes us to a very interesting thing, and that is the first line of a text. And this is what Stephen King says about the first line. And yet, a really good first line can do so much to establish that crucial sense of voice. It's the first thing that acquaints you, that makes you eager, that starts to enlist you for the long haul of reading. So there is incredible power in it. And when you say, come in here, you want to know about this, and someone begins to listen. You open a text, or you see the first shot of a film, or you see a painting, there is something that attracts you and you want to know more. If the first line is not something that grips you, then you are lost. I have a few very interesting opening lines here for you. In Anna Karenina, Leo Tolstoy says, happy families are all alike. Unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. Correct, isn't it? Every family are alike. Every happy family, they are happy. But when you are unhappy, it is your own happiness and unhappiness. And unhappiness comes in different forms. In Pride and Prejudice, the very interesting and satirical statement that Jane Austen made, it is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. So here is, you are going to actually read a novel about a single man who has a good fortune and he's looking around for a. And look at the first sentence, which is very short in Moby Dick. Herman Melville says, "Call me Ishmael." And he is the narrator of the story. So you are actually looking at a first person narration of a protagonist who has been created. So it is not it's not an autobiography of the writer, but it is the autobiography of a person who has been created as a character, and the character begins to talk. And when he says, "Call me Ishmael," that has a biblical overtone about it. There is also a kind of familiarity about it, and you can call me this. And so now I will tell you my story. And in The Old Man and the Sea, the first line reads like this: "He was an old man who fished alone in a skiff in the Gulf Stream, and he had gone 84 days now without taking a fish." So I always feel pity for this old man. But as the novel proceeds, you begin to realize that he is not a character who wants our pity, but who wants what Hemingway is trying to tell us is, here is a man who refuses to be defeated even though he is destroyed. He cannot get the fish, but he refuses to be defeated, and that is his willpower. And look at these last lines of the same novels, and you'll find the way in which each of those novels begin and end. "My life now," in Anna Karenina, Tolstoy writes, "my life now, my whole life, regardless of all that happened to me, every minute of it is not only not meaninglessness, is not only not the double negative, meaningless as it was before, but was the unquestionable meaning of the good which is in my power to put into it." So you read that sentence again and again to find out what he's really trying to say. And you gauge a kind of understanding of what the willpower of a character like Anna Karenina. It is not the meaninglessness, but the unquestionable meaning of the good which is in my power to put into it. So it's a moral lesson actually you are learning. Now in Pride and Prejudice, as the novel closes, Jane Austen says, "And they were both, they have come together, the hero and the heroine have come together." And it does not end with the sentence, "and they were happy ever after." But it says that they were sensible to the warmest gratitude towards the people, towards the person who by bringing her to Derbyshire had been the means of uniting. So there's a kind of warmth, gratitude to the people around. And the lovers just don't go away loving one another, but they are aware of the people in the society. And in Moby Dick, Ishmael, when he says, "Call me Ishmael," he ends that saying that his ship, Pequod, is totally destroyed. Everyone has been swallowed up by the sea in the shipwreck. But it is another ship called Rachel that is also cruising to find all the missing children, because Moby Dick is a huge whale that has overturned the ship. And the ship Rachel finds another orphan. So Ishmael is the orphan that you have at the end of the book and at the beginning of the book, where he says, "Call me Ishmael." So the way in which we begin to reread the text from the last line is also very significant. So telling a story or reading a story doesn't just mean reading what is there, but as I said at the beginning, interacting with it. J.K. Rowling, I took Rowling because I wanted to show how early writers and how more recent writers also give importance to the first line and the last line. In one of her novels, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, she says, Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4, Privet Drive, were proud to say that they were perfectly normal. Thank you very much. The kind of informality with which she says, thank you very much. We are very normal people. And we know that the Philosopher's Stone and Harry Potter is anything but normal and anything but what you'd say real, because it's a contrast with the magical world to which Harry will be introduced and to which the reader will also be introduced. So there's a kind of understatement that you find in a sentence like that. And where later she says, of course, it is happening inside your head, Harry, but why on earth should that mean that it is not real? So it doesn't have to be what you see around you, but it could be also what you imagine. So the world of fantasy. So this is one of my concluding slides where I talk about different kinds of narratives. We have narratives which have a historical context. Something happens in a country that is very disturbing for the people and for the writer. And we know Midnight's Children, Salman Rushdie talks about the moment of participation, of independence. And the great Indian novel tries to set Mahabharata as a backdrop for reinterpreting the political situation in India during the pre-independence and the post-independence period. So you're really looking at a political novel, which is also historically rooted, but which has different ways of narration. In the Midnight's Children, we have what is called magical realism. And it's not a purely realistic kind of novel. In the great Indian novel, what we have is a mythological kind of novel where mythology is used to reinterpret the present situation. So if there's a connection, like it is like a string on which you put all the beads and the beads keep on rearranging. If you look at the location of a narrative, where is it placed? We know Malgudi, R.K. Narayan created his Malgudi, the fictitious town. Hardy talked about Wessex in all his novels. His novels are actually located in Wessex. Faulkner talked about an artificial town that he created, Yoknapatawa, and what happens in that particular place. So it is not only what you would say, the real towns that are represented, but also fictitious towns that get represented. Remember, in The God of Small Things, we have everything set in Cayman. So the way in which she is trying to, and the novel begins with the very fascinating statement, and I wanted to say that earlier because it is May today, it is the month of May now, and Arundhati Roy says, May in Cayman is hot and something to do, it's hot and humid or something like that. And actually May is a month in which Kerala is very, very hot, though we have these occasional rains. Cultural context, when immigrant writing begins to happen, you find that people who have moved out of one country to another country begin to write nostalgically about the country that they have left behind, or they write very cynically about the country that they have adopted. We have novels that are based in places like China and Japan. We have environmental, what we call comic books that give a lot of importance to the forest or the deserts, like Mowgli, like Tarzan. And then we have the landscape, weather, natural environments. Then we have social context in which life becomes unbearable, like Emily Zola's Nana. And why it happened, what happens to a prostitute who lives in a particular era, in a particular time in history, and how social communities and social classes need to establish social structures, hierarchies, relationships within that group. So narratives is something that really opens up for us a Pandora's box. It is not the evil that comes out, but I would say a Pandora's box full of thought-provoking ideas. And that is the last of my slides. Thank you, and I hope you enjoyed listening to a narrative of telling stories. Thank you. Usha?
Very
Yeah,
nice.
thank you, Jameela. You can stop sharing.
Okay. Yes, I'm back.
Yeah, now we'll go into the interactions. Jameela, can you moderate the interactions as well? Because it
Yeah,
will be easier
no
for you
problem.
to reply to the questions.
Yes.
Binaji, you want to say something? You are muted, Binaji. Unmute kijiye.
Jameela ji, I want to say that it's a wonderful
Thank you.
your presentation, and the stories are so important for each and every age, I feel, because there is a lot of message in that. So everybody can enjoy. But somehow these days, this telling a story and hearing a story is all stopped, especially in India. Otherwise, it's a very a good thing, and it can you can motivate the child while telling the stories. And I want to highly appreciate your presentation. It was I'm dreaming my childhood.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vinaji.
Congratulations, and
Actually, the
very
new
nice.
generation have no time to read long novels, so they
Yes,
prefer graphic novels with pictures and all that, so that they read little. But they,
Yeah.
what I find, what I tell them is that even as
Yeah.
they look at the pictures and read short tracts, if they can imagine and recreate it in their minds, that is what constitutes a real understanding of a story.
Yeah. And Harry Potter is still so popular and
For every age.
Yes.
every age. Yeah.
I think what Jameela said is so relevant because I don't think we've stopped storytelling. I think the day we stop storytelling, we die because everything is a story in one form or the other. It's only that the stories have changed and the appeal of these ancient stories have to be kind of rethought. We really need to modify them when we are telling it to the younger generation, what Jameela so brilliantly brought out as retellings. But so, I mean, when I do my storytelling, I tell a traditional story and I say, if this was happening now, what would be the changes? And the kids jump into it and they want to engage with the story, which they normally wouldn't. So I think that Joseph Campbell was absolutely on the spot, bang on when he said, our myths are our reality. When we use the word myth, we associate it with fiction, with a lie, but they are the clues to the way we live. And I think everything is a story, whether it is in the political arena or in nature or anything. And that is why I think stories can never die.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Jameela. Thank you.
Thank you, Rohit. Yes, Kuljit ji wanted to say something.
Thank you so much, Jameela ji. You have taken me back to my college days.
Oh.
James Joyce, Ulysses, Homer's Odyssey, Anna Karenina. Those are the books which I don't know present generation they read and they enjoy. The way we used to enjoy
Yes.
Tolstoy's work, other writers, Homer's Odyssey, and Greek mythology. The whole English literature was full of Greek mythology. And when you named all this Penelope and all, I was reminded of my college days. But you have explained it so wonderfully, like every time. Every time you give beautiful introduction. This time, of course, you were the heroine of this program, and you explained everything so well. There was pin drop silence, and everybody was listening so attentively. So this was also the way you have narrated the whole thing. It was also storytelling.
Yes, that is exactly what I was about to say.
It was like a storytelling
story.
as though from the beginning till today you are narrating the story how the stories develop, what are the themes of the stories, how Aristotle in Poetics he said how to write a story, how the beginning, the theme, and the conclusion, everything was like a story. So I must say that you are a really wonderful storyteller. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much for
And
everything.
I think
Right.
one of the things that people are beginning to realize is that even in universities now, narrative research is taken very seriously
Okay.
for exactly this reason. And of course, bibliotherapy works with also the differently able children.
Okay.
And they are able to see very different things in it from the way the so-called normal children can. So I think bibliotherapy is, of course, for everyone, irrespective of age or capacity. So I think that in the world today, people are really wanting to tell their stories. And one of the things that can save them from the depression that social media and too much of engagement with social media can cause is storytelling, because you're engaging with someone, you're trying to understand the life of someone rather than just having a robot talking to you. Very, very recently now in the UK and Sweden and other countries, they have realized that children don't learn from robots, even if the robot is telling stories, however interestingly, because when a live human being is interacting with them, that is what they want. So I think this is great hope for us as storytellers, and storytelling, as I said earlier, itself can never die. I think as long as human beings live.
Now it's the way the mothers tell stories to the children
Yes,
every day, and yes.
yes, and now it's also becoming very, very fashionable in the business world. So you have those stories also to teach management. I mean, I have a program where management can be taught through Shakespeare
Okay.
and things like that. So that is also becoming more and more rampant. People are recognizing the importance of storytelling.
Yeah, correct. I think Kalyanji wanted to say something. She is unmuting. Is it?
Uh,
Ah,
yeah, thank you so much, Jamila ji. As always, it was so interesting. And in fact, your presentation itself was a sort of a story,
yes.
one after another. Um, and I think the beginning line and the ending line, both, which you mentioned, it's so important. I think it was a story in itself. But there were few things which were going in my mind. Number one was I was brought up in Calcutta, and I remembered Patachitra Katha. Bengal, it's very famous, the Patichitra Katha. They make it originally, they used to write stories and all in the Tamra thing. And now, of course, it has changed. But that was a very popular way, of storytelling in Bengal, Patichitra Katha. And so when we were in school and all, also, we were taken, to listen to that. And I mean, I realize now when you were talking that how important it was. It made very good impression on us. It had really good impact on us. Every story, whatever it was being narrated through the Patichitra Katha, it was a very, impactful. And the second thing which you mentioned, some of the stories which are being made into movies, how I think different, because of course I've heard it from my children. They have read the entire series of this Harry Potter, but my daughter, when she saw the movie and she came back and she said it really spoiled my impression about the book.
Okay.
I don't remember now number one or number two which one it was, but she came back, and because they are, both of them have been avid readers, and then they were so much into this Harry Potter fancy world, the movie sort of like broke little bit of their the fancy thing. So,
Yeah.
that was another thing. And about this retelling, what you mentioned, is very interesting, because recently I was reading a book, Devdutt Patnaik. I mean, you know very well how he is interpreting or reinterpreting, our mythology in different ways. And in that book, he writes that, Kumbhakarna and Ravan go to meet their usual meeting with Sita for breakfast, which sounded so funny. But then I think the reason he gave us that, the negativity which Sita had developed, being caught and being there, Ravan and Kumbhakarna were trying to break it by meeting her every day for, yeah, breakfast. I think that also conveys a message in some way. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there are so much, as you said, about the storytelling and all, and even a lot of, I think, if we come to our own work, uh, there is a lot of storytelling which can help in awareness creation. Because I just came back from Ahmedabad. I was in a consultation on heat consultation. This MS Swaminathan Foundation had invited, and there, when I was showcasing all the work, one of the project I was showcasing, which Shikha had done in Sundarban, and so I was talking about it, and one of the participant asked me, "Madam, can you tell us little bit of folk stories of Sundarban and how they sort of, saved the mangroves? They must be having some folklores." But I was actually clueless. I didn't know. So I told Shikha when I came back that you please try to collect those, because they will help us for our future work. And for
Yeah.
younger generation, it will be very impactful. So these were the things which were going on in my mind when I was listening to you. But thank you so much. It was so interesting and very well narrated. Thank you.
Thank you, Kalyanji. And as you said, the restoration of the old stories, that is being taken up very seriously. And as Kumi said, a lot of research is being done on that. The lost
Mhm.
tribal stories and the lost generation, the stories of a lost generation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Can I say?
Yeah,
Jamila?
yeah. Kamini.
Something,
Of
Radhika?
course, I agree to all what everybody says. It was a storytelling. You narrated a story to us. It was so interesting. Sorry. It was so interesting that you took us to a different level. And I remember my grandfather was an English professor. So he used to tell us ghost stories from his Palakkad village. Just made up. He made up some of them and used to narrate the stories, Shakespeare stories, all that he used to narrate. So as you see, from one generation to another, the storytelling still continues, because when we go abroad to take care of the children, we narrate the stories to them. So that is still there. I don't think we have lost that thing or process of transmitting this to the other. That still continues. So that is interesting too. And I remember, like, talking about Tarzan and Tarzan, like having forests there. So they have many cinema like that. How they are interesting. And then I'm talking about Sinbad the sailor. There are so many movies like they're not really interesting and adventurous. And it is seen with movie as a movie, it is all the more interesting, isn't it? That's it. And puppet show in the temples, even now in Chennai and all those places, they have puppet shows. They narrate. They have a story about Rama and Sita, whatever, and then they have puppet shows. So all these are still there. Part of our culture is still there. I don't think we are going to miss out on all these. And your narration was excellent, Jameela. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Kamini.
Yeah,
Bonishi.
would you like to say
Yeah.
something?
Yeah.
Please unmute
Okay.
and
Geeta wanted to say something.
oh, Radhika. Radhika is
Radhika. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. As usual, Jamila, an excellent presentation. So and very interesting. I'm sorry, by the time I could get, it's been some time since I joined Zoom, so it took me some time to join. So I missed the beginning, but the rest of it was very, very interesting and a very professional academic exposition or an analysis of storytelling, something we take so much for granted. And as so many of people have pointed out, I don't think storytelling will ever stop so long as, the family exists. The one generation will always be telling stories, especially when the children are small. It's part of and I hope and pray that it doesn't stop, because that's part of human interaction. And that like Kamini said, I still remember, the night time when there was not so much of distraction of social media, etc. When we were children, our nighttime routine was our mother would narrate those stories we would be sleeping all around. And so that was the nighttime ritual. All the stories, the Puranas and this thing and all other stories also. So that not only was our imagination fired up, there was also this bonding amongst the family members, brothers, sisters, fighting for which place, to be closest to my mother.
Yeah.
Some cousins who were very good at storytelling. So whoever is narrating the story, I mean, I remember holidays, my childhood, full of, whoever is narrating stories. But it was not only the imaginative world of the story, it was also the human bonding between people, which I hope and pray that doesn't, I mean, we constantly feel that social media is interfering very much with that human bonding. But as someone pointed out, who is in the profession, that a robot telling the story is not the same as a human being telling. And so that human interaction still is worthwhile. So that is, it was a very interesting topic and very interestingly portrayed by you. So thank you very much, Jimmy.
I think we should continue telling stories on the dining table.
Yes.
That's how we can create the bonding with the children and with the family,
Yeah.
Hear your
I mean,
experiences.
time spent with
Yes.
children, especially when
Very
they
well
are
said, Usha ji. Very well said.
Can I say something, Jameela ji?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Actually, like everybody else, I really appreciate the way you. I mean, we are in a trance when you talk, and we just go along with the presentation. More than I could not read the presentation because I was listening to you. Basically, that is how. And many of the things, like one or two things I'll say. When we were children, we grew up hearing stories from our mothers, grandmothers, and there was always a moral of the story. We used to be told, there will be like that. But nowadays, I don't know, mothers and people, they don't have much time for that. The children go to bed with some mobiles or watching cartoons. So that those cartoons may or may not have morals in that, moral of the story in that. That is one dangerous thing which is happening. And of course, one or two things like Pandora's box, when you are saying, we often refer to it as Pandora's box. Today I came to know, oh, it's evil coming out. I will never use it then. No, evil coming out is something, which we should be careful about. I always say, oh, it's like a Pandora's box.
Excuse me, can I interject here? Actually, Pandora's box, finally, there is hope. The only one left in the box, there is hope.
Okay.
It's not all evil.
Yeah.
Okay. Then, of course, while telling the story, your story today, you had described to us what the plot is, what a theme is, what is the difference between that. Those things, I mean, plot and theme, I never thought that will be different. Of course, you are a literature person and of course, you will be teaching your students all those. But for us, it was a good learning. Thank you so much for that. And, when you are talking about a God of small things, I was thinking that you're going to say something which we often say, anything can happen to anyone, anytime. That was some very important point. All the time we keep, and sometimes when we talk, about something is good, anything can happen to anybody, anytime. That is something. I thought you were going to say about that.
No, I wanted to say the concluding line also, which says tomorrow. It leaves it open like that, Ammu and Lalitha, what maybe that caste system, everything will change, and tomorrow something better will come. So there is always that kind of open-endedness, sometimes with which you use a last line. And also, as you said, like children, one of the things I insist that my grandchildren do, the girls obey, not the boys. I say you go to bed with a book.
Yes.
But it's very difficult to get the boys to do that. My granddaughters do that.
Just one thing. I have one thing. My daughter-in-law, Ramya Shashindran, she is there in this thing.
Oh,
They are storytellers. They do the digital storytelling.
There she
I don't
is.
know whether she has got anything to say. I have to
Yeah.
encourage her to talk because she
Yeah, please do.
hesitate
Please
to.
do unmute and talk. Please talk.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Thank
Hi.
you so much. This was a very, very interesting conversation, and the presentation of Professor Jameela was very interesting. And this connects a lot with a lot of the work that we are doing here in Dehradun. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about this project that we're running in Dehradun called Digital Storytellers for Social Change, and it picks up on some of the points that were mentioned here about mobile phones and how stories are changing, and are we even sharing stories anymore? So we want to leverage the power of mobile phones that so many people have access to, and especially people who are marginalized in some way or don't get the opportunity to put their stories out very often. So this could be people with disabilities, it could be women, housewives, and other groups who don't find themselves on a stage or a platform very often. So what we do is we have a training session, and then based on that we teach them various aspects of storytelling, and then we encourage them to tell their own stories, and by sharing their experiences they can encourage other people to bring about some kind of social change. So just to also speak to what Kalyani ji mentioned about extreme heat in Ahmedabad and the session that she was part of, we are also planning on doing a session on digital storytelling to address the issue of extreme heat in Dehradun, in slums of in women who live in slums, because often women who live in slums are the biggest victims of extreme heat because they stay at home, they do the cooking, they have to do the cleaning, and there's no respite from the extreme heat. So we're planning on using the avenue of digital storytelling for them to share their stories within their communities and see how they can come up with their own solutions. So yeah, we hopefully down a few months we'll be able to tell you the results from that project. So yeah, just thank you so much for this opportunity to be part of this. This is very interesting. Thank you.
Very, very interesting work that you are doing. We'd love to hear more from you about the work that you are doing and how women begin to tell their stories. When that bonding happens, as I said, there is always a bonding that makes you want to tell your stories. And
I think Supriya from Hyderabad has raised hands.
Supriya?
Yeah, can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Usha ji, and thank you, Jameela ji. Such a wonderful presentation. It has taken us into the different world, from what we have today. We also use Zoom and WebEx only for technical sessions and all. But this has been really wonderful. I am a publisher and I have done, some storytelling through these books also when the messages go to the rural people. And we have created stories. Like actually for menopause, we've got this Shamala, how she was sort of when the children were growing up and she still could manage to interfere their lives and all, keep their lunch boxes ready when they would like to eat pizza outside and all. And then slowly they started avoiding her and she felt very dejected. And then after that, she was told by her friend saying that, look, I have adjusted, you also adjust. And then when she started talking at the children's level, then she comes back onto the track. And this was actually the main menopausal symptom she was suffering through. And this is how she was brought back, and then her life became normal. So this was actually a story created for us by a gynecologist. And there was another story actually where in the villages, when they want any health center to be opened, and they have to walk quite a few miles, kilometers to go and get treated. And there actually, when there was happening, this training session was happening on health. So there we wrote one story about the village where women never fall ill. So actually, in this session, the trainer asked them कि हाँ क्या क्या है आपके health issues and all बताइए इस village में. तो उन्होंने बोला कि मेरे पिताजी को बैकएक है बहुत। देन किसी ने बोला मेरे देवर जी को एक्सीडेंट हुआ है तो पैर को ये मोच आई हुई है, मेरे हस्बैंड को ये है, मेरे बच्चों को ये है। तो आप सबको क्या होता है, आप सब कुछ बीमार पड़ते हो या नहीं? तो उन्होंने एक बार पूरा एकदम साइलेंस छा गया. No one could answer. And then they started looking at, their own problems, and they said, yes, I have a headache. I have a period problem. I have this, I have that. This is how we actually created the stories to get people interested in reading these books. So this is what we have done. And I'm very, very happy that you are starting this program. Initially, I missed, but I don't know what is the intention for the next sessions. That are you going to read the books, or are you going to make people uh, tell the stories? Is that so?
Yeah, actually, our intention was, this was just to put a kind of format to what we will have in the succeeding sessions. We wanted members as well as those invited to talk about books, to talk about a particular book, or to talk about their own writings. Or as you said, this has got me really interested, Ramya and Supriya, both of you, the kind of work that you are doing with women and the kind of stories that really relate to the women of certain localities. These will all come within the purview of what we have just started. The notion of the art of storytelling was a broad theme with which we wanted to launch this program. And in the succeeding sessions, we'll be talking about different communities that are bonded because of a storytelling, or like you say, if it, like Bhumi has just said, where you find the disadvantaged groups, how they tell their stories, or but people in a particular, how they narrate their stories. Sometimes it might be just a poem that they have written about themselves. And someone can talk about that and tell us how a particular situation renders that kind of feeling in a writer. So these are all, we are open to a lot of such, what you would say, intellectual excursions, even emotional excursions into the thought processes of writers and the situations that they represent. So you'll be most welcome to join us, Supriya, and we will.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And it was a wonderful session. I
Have
must
proposed, it would be good if you could send your own, what you would like to talk on to Usha or to me. And we will be sort of putting it in the months that follow.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Sarama Chandy wants to say something. Please unmute yourself. Please unmute. Yes.
Good evening, everybody. And it was an excellent presentation, Madam Jameela. And I thank Usha Madam also for giving me the link. And actually, as a teacher, I am worried that this storytelling has so much effect when we were small. As someone else told, that our parents used to tell stories. But today, the present generation is not showing that much interest. Jameela Madam has excellently presented, touching all the areas where through stories, even it was an information for us also, and psychological novels and Shakespearean characters. Everything was so interestingly in the short period. She covered everything, and I must thank AIWC to give me a chance to be a member of this. At the same time, we must also think, Madam, such talks should go to the universities, so that at the same time, to mothers also, like in YWCA, so that mothers also should know the importance of this storytelling to their children. And starting line, ending line, everything well presented. Another most important thing is beautiful slides. Usually when I see slides, we cannot read it. And no unwanted colors and well presented slide preparation also. So along with the presentation, excellence and how she presented it, that every slide was quite readable and fully I could read. I was so happy that I entered and listened to that. But one thing, madam, we have to think about the present generation not interested in knowing and discussing about stories and what effect the story gives, which we don't know. The students doesn't know. Even I have grandchildren. When you call to talk, in between they move out. They may read many things, but the important storytelling we have to.
But the way you tell a story, is also important. The way you act out a story, where you make the children also participants in the story. So this is the way you really make them enter a story. And once they get on to it, you find that they want to read a little more. So that is what is not being done in schools today. And that is what has to be done.
So as you people like you and we all can, how can we initiate it in the school level or college level, university level? Now you are not working in the university, though you are working in other places, but such talks can be given, madam. No, it is extremely important, and you have touched almost all important areas, different types of stories, psychological novels, and the Shakespearean characters. All of this was really interesting, and I appreciate your slides also. Usually I look to the slides also. Sometimes half only you can read, but point-wise, well presented, no unwanted colors. That also matters. Thank you, madam, very much. Thank you, Usha, madam, also.
As a teacher, we always tell our students, do this on your slides, don't do that. So we have to be models for them.
Models and point-wise presented. Excellent it was.
Okay. We have some in the chat box, some messages. Like someone from iPhone 4 says, really enjoyed your presentation. Thank you. Lakshmi Bai says, thank you, ma'am, for that very interesting talk on the art of writing stories. Presented a lot of insights. Renu says, really enjoyed, though I came in very late. I carry away with me a wish to read those other stories again. Anna Karenina, Moby Dick, the lot. And then someone else in Galaxy A52 says, such talks are truly thought-provoking and prove that artificial intelligence can never equal the human capacity to collect, filter, and present information in a coherent way and opening a vast arena for us. Thank you, ma'am. Interesting session, Supriya says, not a dull moment. Kumi, thank you for a wonderful presentation. So sorry, but I have to leave. And Radhika says, thank you for a wonderful presentation. So that's all the messages in the chat box. So I think we have had a interesting discussion. Thank you all so much for interacting so well with the presentation that I made. And I hope that in our later sessions too, we will have this participation and thought-provocative statements and your own experiences and your own life to talk about. So thank you very much, everyone who has joined on this platform. Thank you, Kalyanji, for being here all the while. Thank you, Kujitji, Beena ji. Thank you all so much for being here. It's always
Thank you so much. It was wonderful. I wanted to leave actually 10 minutes ago, but the discussions were also so interesting. I just wanted to be here till end. Thank you so much, Jameela ji.
Thank you, Kalyanji. So now, thank you, Usha, for forcing me to start this program, though I was very diffident at times. So we begin a new series, and I hope you will find this one
Usha,
as
say
interesting
something.
as the
I want
last
to
one.
listen to you.
No,
Usha?
yeah,
Usha?
Say something.
Yeah.
One is, of course, one point I wanted to make about the presentation itself. We have been talking about the retelling of stories. But I also feel that there is a lot in rereading of the books. Recently I was reading Old Man and the Sea again. Maybe after years, I had read it while in school or college, and now I read it again. It is a totally new book. It is not what I read 40 years back that I read now. So, you know, that also makes a lot of difference. And I would request Jameela that maybe we can have a session on how to read a book. See, many people just go fast, just understanding the story, not really going into the different aspects of that. So maybe we can get somebody to tell us how to read a book and how to assess a book. So in one of our future sessions, we could have that. And I invite all our friends to send us ideas. Please tell us what we can include in this series. What would you like to listen to about books, about reading, about narratives, and not just books? As Ramya said, they are into making, using the digital media and about films and all the different media, how stories can be told, even paintings. So I request all of you to send us good ideas so that we can expand on that and then present interesting sessions like the one here. This was just like a teaser for a movie. This was just an introductory session. And since this has been so interesting, I'm sure all of you will join us in the following sessions also. And we hope to have many more interesting sessions. Now I think we are coming to the end of the session. I request Kamini to give the vote of thanks.
Unmute,
Unmute, please, Kamini.
Jameela ji, that was a wonderful evening. Listen to stories narrated by you. And as everyone says, we have to continue this particular theme of storytelling, invite people to give new ideas about stories, etc. And as everybody was saying, the storytelling is still there, I think, and that should continue for many generations. We hope that it will continue. So that was a very good evening. Thank you, Beena Jain ji, Kuljit ji, Kalyani ji. Thank you for all your kind words and your opinion about Jameela's presentation. As always, she is a favorite among everyone, not only in Trivandrum branch, but throughout the AIWC branch. So thank you, Jameela, for your wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for those kind words.
So we'll again
Shall we close?
In the first Saturday of next month, and send you in advance what the topic is and what we are going to present. And Veena Kodi, madam, are you still there? Would you like to say something? She's our senior patron. And Veena ji, are you still there?
Yeah, she's still there.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah,
Can
please,
you hear me?
Can you please?
Yeah, it was a very interesting session. And I just love stories. I love to read short stories. I listen on the Audible also. I've been constantly listening. And I also love to watch movies. I would suggest that maybe in some future sessions, let the members participate by telling some short story about which they may have heard or they may have experienced. We would like to know more and more about the stories that they may have heard. So this is just my input that I love listening to stories. Anyway, thank you so much for starting this session, and I am sure it'll be very interesting, and more people will participate in this. Thank you, Usha.
Thank you, Veena.
Thank you.
So, shall we wind up now?
Yeah. Thank you, Veena ji. That was a good suggestion. I think we will go ahead with it.
Yeah. Yeah, we are waiting for good suggestions from all of you. And once again, on behalf of AIWC Trivandrum Branch, Literary and Cultural Forum, I thank all of you for being with us. And most of the persons who joined had stayed on till the end. So that was a very good indication that it is an interesting topic that we have introduced, and I hope more and more people will join us in the days to come. Thank you so much. See you again next month in the Literary and Cultural Forum session. Thank you.
Usha. Thank you,
Thank you.
Jameela ji.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so